This happened over 30 years ago, but I will never forget the conversation. I was a teenage mother, my oldest brother, 8 years older, and his wife had 5 children in 4 years, including 2 sets of twins 11 months apart. I loved my nieces and nephews and babysat all the time before I had my son. But afterwards, I was so busy with school, a baby, and working part-time jobs on the weekends to keep him in diapers. I didn't have time to babysit for free or get paid in pizza and Coke. I got home from my job one Saturday, bone-tired, knowing I had laundry and homework, and just wanting to play with my baby. My sister-in-law was sitting at the kitchen table talking to my mom, and she was obviously crying. I figured it was a private conversation, so I said a quick hi and tried to walk by. My sister-in-law grabbed my arm and said we needed to talk. I was worried something happened to my brother or the kids. I sat down, and she said that she and my mom were talking, and I needed to quit my job to watch her kids on the weekends. That it wasn't fair that I only had 1 child and she had 5. Never mind that I was only 17 and was really too young to have any children, but I was determined to do my best to be a good mom. I refused to quit, but I offered to come watch the kids when I got home on Saturdays, only if I could bring my laundry. She said yes, but started demanding I bring my own detergent or pay her for what I was using. Plus, caring for 6 kids with theirs and my own child, 4 in diapers, was just too much. I quit. She told the kids I didn't love them anymore since I had my own baby now. Your sister-in-law was mighty entitled, wasn't she? And you were very generous. Your story reminds me of an old gripe, and I'm going to vent. This was years ago, so no advice needed. My sister was in the middle of a precarious pregnancy. Her husband worked on the weekends, so I'd go over every Saturday to keep her company and help her tend to her daughter, who I think was 5 or 6. My father would pick up lunch from a nearby deli and bring it over, and generally, it was fun. Since I was spending every Saturday over there for several months, I would bring my 2 loads of laundry for the week so I could use her washer and dryer. You didn't have one at my apartment, and the laundry room wasn't particularly convenient. I thought that was a fair trade-off for giving her 8 or more hours of the day. Then, one day, she said my doing laundry was driving up her water bill. I offered to pay the increase, but she refused. She just didn't want me to do my laundry there anymore. I was flabbergasted that she was so adamant when I felt I was doing her a pretty big favor. Given her tough spot, I just stopped bringing over my laundry, and sadly, she lost the baby not too many weeks later, so the Saturday situation ended anyway. I've never brought it up because I don't want to remind her of that terrible loss, but it still bugs me that she wouldn't let me do my laundry. Wow, not your fault she decided to pop out kids like that. If she's not able to take care of her kids, then she should not have had any. Why couldn't she quit her own job and look after her own kids instead of taking advantage of you? You have your own responsibilities. This was in 2003, when I was a junior in high school. I was turning 17, and Beth had just turned 16. Beth was my girlfriend at the time, and we had dated towards the end of the previous school year. We took things slow, though. To be honest, we did fool around quite a bit, but always with our clothes on, and never below the belt. My parents did not give me the family standard, abstinence plus pro-life only talk like the rest of my many aunts, uncles, and cousins had. Instead, they sat me down and gave me a proper lesson about S, what it is, how it works, how to do protection, as well as risks involved with pregnancies and STDs. They were honest about wanting me to wait until I was married, but also told me that if I feel like I was ready and willing to be responsible, I could have it. Most importantly, they taught me about consent. If I want to have S, but she doesn't, I cannot force her. Also, if she wants S, but I don't want to, she cannot force me. So when Beth was pressuring me into having S, I didn't want to. Well, physically I wanted to. My body was so ready. However, mentally, I was not. I knew that it was too soon in our relationship. Plus, I thought about everything my parents taught me, about how if I feel ready, it's okay. But I didn't feel ready. It wasn't the fear of getting sick or becoming a father. I just knew that I was not mature enough to have it. Beth was a bit upset when I told her no. I told her to give me a few more months, and I might be ready. At first, she agreed, but the following week, she was suddenly grabby. I mean, we were making out, and her hand went below my belt, and I stopped her. She wanted to keep going, but I just pulled away. It was for all of September that she kept trying to get me to have S with her. Always trying to touch me in places I did not want to be touched. Trying to undress myself or undress herself in front of me. I turned her down, and I had hoped she had gotten the hint. Again, while my body wanted her, my mind did not. I couldn't convince her to stop, so I broke up with her. To her credit, she didn't tell everyone that she dumped me for being a jerk, like most of the girls at our school would. She said the same thing I was saying. We just weren't ready to take our relationship to the next level, and we decided that we did not want to be together. Good, right? Until 2 weeks later, her parents showed up at my house wanting to K me. Beth was pregnant with my child. Of course, I went on the defensive right away, saying that I never had S with her. However, she convinced her family that it was my kid because I was the only man she had ever been with. I denied it, and I told them that when the baby is born, I will have a DNA test to prove it. I know a lot of you are probably going to say that there is a way to do a test before the baby is born, but no one at the time knew that. I didn't know that until my wife told me today. I told my parents that I never had S with her. I told family, friends, and her family and friends that we never had S. Well, my dad's dad, DD, while having mellowed out some since I was born, wanted me to get a part-time job and start saving money right away for Beth and the baby. I told him flat out that the baby was not mine, but he seemed convinced that it was. I mean, I wasn't the only male in the family that was suspected of knocking someone up. But even though I had never done it, my other male cousin had, so my family's history was no help there. Beth went around school and told staff, students, and teachers that I was the father. How upset she was that I would take her body and throw her aside like trash, and wouldn't take responsibility for our child. Thankfully, a few of my friends supported and defended me, knowing that I would step up if I had knocked up Beth for real. However, the rest of my friends took Beth's side, saying that I need to start thinking about being a father or get ready to pay child support. Even teachers got involved, wanting me to take home economics so I can prepare myself. The freaking vice principal gave me pamphlets and suggests I take a parenting course. Between school and home, I had no real place to hide from everyone telling me to man up and be a father. Even my parents started to doubt my word. I had family that sent me old baby clothes and other items to give them to my child. Well, I did give them to Beth because it was rather nice of them. But I told everyone, I insisted that I was not the father. I was still forced to go with her to doctor visits and whatnot, and she even gave me pictures of the baby from the ultrasounds. I told her several times throughout the year that she needs to stop telling people I'm the father, because once the DNA test goes through, it will be proven that I was not the father. She gave me this confident smile and told me that the DNA test will prove me out as the father. I had no idea how the hell she thought that was possible, unless I had a secret twin she slept with. The next 8 months were hell for me. I stopped answering the phone because it was always my family wanting to know what I was going to name my child, or complaining about how I am not doing more to help the mother. Her family demanding I do more, even showing up to my place to drag me to doctor appointments. Or tried to anyways. The school counselor wanted me to see him about part-time work I could do that wouldn't interfere with school. Don't get me started on how teachers were thinking how much of a failure I was. Towards the end, my own parents were thinking about how nice it would be to be grandparents. When Beth went into labor, I went to the hospital. I told the doctors there that I wanted a DNA test the second the baby was out. Of course, I was concerned about how Beth was doing, but I wanted to prove that I wasn't the father. I made dang sure that her family will not put down on any official paper that I was the father of the baby, lest they could nail me for the child support later. The test showed 2 things. 1, and this was the most important, I was not the father. Insert happy dance here. Second though, it turned out that the baby did belong to someone in the family. No wonder she thought I would be named as the father. She thought that the DNA would only be able to prove that the baby was part of my family, not prove that I wasn't the father. She had really hoped I would accept it as my kid. Nope. Though Beth still insisted I was the father, my cousin would step forward and reveal that he was the father. Beth cheated on me with him, and even got knocked up by him. That's why she was so insistent that we have S. She was pregnant at the time. She had hoped that if we had S, she could convince me that the baby was mine. Clearly that didn't work, and I was let off the hook. Sadly, my cousin was not, and was forced by his folks to get a part-time job. Although my gramps wanted them to marry, it never happened. Cousin and Beth was there for the baby boy, taking care of him, but the two never married. He still takes an active role as his father, but also his son's friend. I felt so much better, and once word got out about who the real father was, I wasn't bothered too much anymore. I still had some people tell me that I should have taken responsibility in some way. But I just pointed out that the kid wasn't mine. My family, slowly and sometimes reluctantly, apologized for harassing me the way they did. My cousin told me how sorry he was for not coming forward sooner. I would forgive him eventually. Him and Beth. Beth got married sometime outside of high school and had a few more kids. Cousin got married, had one kid, and still takes care of his son. So it all worked out. It makes no sense to me that a woman would identify the wrong man as the father of her child. Nowadays, the proof is too easy to obtain. I'm glad you stayed strong. I know you said he apologized for not coming forward sooner, but screw your cousin for not at least admitting the kid might be his while the whole family was turning against you. Also, screw Beth for thinking she could force you to accept a kid she knew wasn't yours. If nothing else, why didn't she try that crap with your cousin, the actual father of the baby? What does she name by wrongfully naming you the father? I forgot to say why she didn't name my cousin. For one thing, she didn't want to admit that she cheated on me. Second, my cousin was 18 when they had S. He was only one grade ahead of her, but there was a lot of legal gray area about the age of consent. He did not want to be accused of being a P. He wasn't, since Beth did admit that she seduced him instead of the other way around. Louis, my brother. Actually my cousin, but we were raised together, so we're like brothers to each other. Dolores, daughter of Louis's father's sister, and therefore his cousin, a entitled B. Valerie, Louis's mother and my aunt. To give context, I think it would be good to start by telling my cousin's story. Our family grew up relatively dysfunctional, and because of that, my mother's sister had some problems. One of them, Valerie, the eldest of my mother's sisters, became involved very early in life with D and alcohol. As a result, she became involved with many men, and in one of those cases, she became pregnant. Here came Louis. When Louis was born, my Aunt Valerie decided to straighten out in life. On her own, she went to rehab. It wasn't easy, and she had several relapses. Because of that, he was basically raised by my mom, along with me and my older sister. Because of my aunt's constant relapses, he never really lived with her, and she didn't really get cleaned up until after he was an adult. Yet, she was always there for him. Even when she was basically being consumed by this damn addiction, she always tried to be there, at least to give him love. His father, on the other hand, didn't care. Louis always tried to form a bond with him, but it was always in vain because he didn't care. Hell, they even lived in the same street for a year, and yet he never made an effort to help his son. When Louis came out as gay, he wasn't there to support him emotionally. When Louis was attacked and nearly killed in the street, he wasn't there for him. When Louis started having financial problems, he didn't lift a ducking finger to give his son some money. When my aunt, Valerie, passed away, the effect of years of alcohol and D sadly hit her a few years ago. He didn't even call to offer condolences. He's a complete heartless son of a B and doesn't deserve any good. More recently, Louis has rented an apartment and is living with his boyfriend. They both have jobs, but they are still having financial problems, and my mother is doing her best to help. That's when Dolores, Louis's father's niece, called a few days ago. It was the first time anyone in Louis's father's family had called him in years. Dolores said that Louis's father had a stroke and that he was in the hospital. The reason she called? Ask for money. According to her, Louis was obliged to give money to her as she would be taking care of his father, the father he saw 3 or 4 times in his life, and therefore everyone in the family should pay her as she would miss a trip to take care of him. Can you imagine this B? They never even spoke. They are basically strangers, and she dares to call him and ask for money to make up for her lost trip. Louis is a nice guy and said that he would pay, but that he can't afford it, and that all he earns is just enough for him and his boyfriend to eat, pay rent, and pay the bills. She even had the nerve to say that everyone has problems and that this is no excuse because they are the only family he has. Tell Louis not to give 1 penny to anyone. This is a scam from his aunt. Louis owes nothing to this man who has not earned the right to be called a father. Tell him to block Dolores and that side of the family. If this man is in the hospital, the case manager, social worker, can make arrangements for home health or nursing home placement. If he has no money or limited income, the case manager, social worker, can give the aunt all the information needed to apply for assistance of all sorts. If aunt is unwilling to help with this, the case manager can even make all the arrangements with this man's consent. I would strongly recommend that you suggest to your brother that he seek counseling. He can learn to set boundaries, take care of himself emotionally, etc. Look for low-cost mental health centers in your area.